And we are recording. So my name's Jill Novak, and I am a yoga health coach. I have been running a program or maybe studying Ayurveda after sort of my yoga world sort of felt really full. Then I added Ayurveda to it. And Ayurveda is this life science where you practice daily habits, and these daily habits help you curate the life that you want. And so you're really intentional about small things, and you let the small things add up to the big things. One thing Ayurveda cares about a lot is these seasonal cleanses. And seasonal cleansing felt easy to me when I did it for like 7 days, things like that, like short, quick ones. And in order to really feel like I could sustain something that was longer than that, I needed to partner with someone. And Sheena and I joined together so that that half of the partnership would feel like it was really strong for me. So I come to this cleanse with a background in yoga and Ayurveda and these ideas, these principles that when we cleanse our physical body, we're also cleansing our mental body. We're also cleansing our spiritual body. When that is clean, we have a connection to our deeper life purpose. And that's sort of where I come to this cleanse. That's the lens I come through. Sheena?
Yeah. So I'm Sheena, and my background is in holistic nutrition and bulletproof coaching. So before that, I was a nurse for about 11 years. And so my approach coming into this cleanse is always going to be around food, right? And so the way that we are nourishing our body is very, very important. And so the foods that we eat are either contributing to the health and the well-being in the body, or it is, contributing to the kind of the toxins and the sludge and the buildup of disease. So that's kind of where I approach cleansing from, is always looking at it from a very scientific sort of research-based, like what is actually happening in the body, in the different organs and the different systems, and how can we be cleansing regularly throughout the year in order to avoid those symptoms or those disease processes in the body. So we have a really beautiful mesh of backgrounds where so often Jill and I are saying the exact same thing, but Jill's using these really like big fancy words, and I'm using just more kind of like Western science, like your liver and your kidneys. And but ultimately we're saying the same thing, which is why working together is so much fun, because we are completely aligned, but just coming at it from two different modalities.
Yeah. And that's what feels so beautiful about it, is that some people would think that a cleanse is something where it's like it has to be really rigid, it has to be very structured, it's very limiting, like there's all these rules of what you're not allowed to do. And how we approach this cleanse is totally from a different perspective. We want you to design it yourself. We'll get into that. And we want you to take bite-sized chunks. Like if we start to think that we're going to take this seasonal time out twice a year, then it's almost like we're curating time where we can have downtime so that our body doesn't have to do it for us. You know, when you get really, really busy and you just like hit a wall and boom, you're sick and you just get knocked down. And that happens because we're not taking any of this purposeful, intentional downtime. And when we take this purposeful, intentional downtime, we can actually allow ourselves to like spiral to higher places than just what we do when we crash and burn after being sick or working too hard. Because then we usually only let ourselves get back to like baseline, and then we start running again. And this is a different approach. It's almost like backing up and saying, hang on a second. I don't want to just like crash from baseline and get back up to there again. I want to go somewhere deeper. I want to take my life somewhere more exciting. So we want to talk to you about that, about why we cleanse. Mm-hmm. I guess this is the first place, Sheena, where you and I have different words. You use the words toxin and I use the word ama. So tell us about toxins.
Yes. Yeah. So toxins are literally anything, right? Any kind of foreign invader into our bodies can be considered a toxin. So you have to consider the food that we're eating, the preservatives and, you know, the colorants and all of the junk that's added to our food these days. Those can contribute to a buildup of toxins in the body. The water that we're drinking, is it clean? Is it purified? Or are we just, you know, drinking tap water every day? The lotions and potions and beauty things that we use on our, you know, on ourselves, those can also be adding to this toxic load. There's so many. The thoughts that we are thinking, they can also contribute to stress and inflammation and toxins in the body. So literally every day we're bombarded, absolutely bombarded with all of these different things. So in this cleanse time frame, really we just want you to pay attention and just kind of notice, where are you potentially introducing these toxins into the body, and where can we just start to kind of avoid some of these, right? So switching up into a cleaner diet, paying attention to our water sources, maybe getting some filtered water, looking at, you know, what is in our cupboard at home, what are we putting on our skin and spraying on our bodies, and just looking at ways that we can just slowly start to move towards a cleaner way of living day to day. So that way, when we do take this an intentional time out to cleanse, we are going deeper every time. And so how Jill was talking about that baseline, right? So cleansing isn't about being perfect for 3 weeks and getting it all right and then going back to where we were. This time is about refining some of our practices and refining some of our habits that we know are going to bring us into more alignment, into feeling better, and to performing better, and just overall just experiencing life with a little bit more clarity. And then we can dive deeper the next cleanse and the next cleanse. But
yeah,
it's just
so we did find that people in the spring were like, the one thing I anchored was my hot lemon water in the morning. And now if they come back in the fall, then it's like they get to anchor something else. And we, each time we sort of practice this, we find something else that just, it lands with us. And the cause effect is so clear to us that then it's impossible not to continue doing it. So it feels really good to sort of align that way, that we're paying close enough attention to how action A has a result in our bodies, that we start to notice, like, A leads to B. And if I do this, then this is what happens. And we see this for the positives and we see it for the negatives. And we start to be clear about the pattern that's running. It's almost like the program that's running in our body. And when we go to do the cleanse, it's like doing the upgrade. Yeah. The word I use in Ayurveda for toxins is ama. And ama basically means the gunk in your system. So it's all that Sheena's talking about, the toxins. And the way Ayurveda sees it is that everything we take in has to be digested. So everything you smell, hear, taste, touch, eat, like consume in your mouth, it all has to be digested. And whatever is unable to be digested ends up as ama, ends up as gunk in your system. And I love that whole thought process because for me, it's simpler. And it's that idea of, okay, so all this stuff I take in, maybe I watched a bad movie last night and it's the one that's got something replaying in my head today where I'm like, oh, that was an awful image or something. And it's undigestible in my body. So our goal here, it's almost like you've cleaned your kitchen. Good. Now we got to get into the baseboards, or we're going to go into the cracks in the grout, or we're going to do some deep cleaning. We're going to let that digestion take less in so that we can go in and burn away, clean away, clear away some of the residual stuff that's been building up. And like Sheena said, it comes at us in our world from so many different places and sources that we can't name them. And we can't be aware of all of them. So we just start paying attention and trying to reduce the load that we're absorbing so that less ama builds up into our systems. So I think really that's why we cleanse. Would you add anything, Sheena, to the why we cleanse?
The only thing that I would add to that is the other part of the reason why I'm so passionate about cleansing and doing it regularly is to avoid the inevitable kind of like chronic disease that could be looming in the future, right? So for me, cleansing is more about prevention than it is symptom management at this point. And that's, I think, just something to get really excited about, right? Like, especially when you think of like, okay, what are the certain health conditions in my family, right? When you think of your family health history, what is it that you don't want for yourself in the future? And what we're doing today, the habits that we're creating and the cleansing that we're doing today is just creating more health and vitality and well-being for the future. And that's what I can get really excited about.
I like how you're Sheena's on the prevention side and I'm on the evolution side. I'm like, oh, but the possibilities if we had that clear connection in our bodies are so endless. And so I love that because every time we can prevent dis-ease, so anything that is dis-ease, and the funny thing is that Ayurveda would say that Western medicine can only diagnose dis-ease at what's Ayurveda would call stage 4. Stage 4. So many things that we have happen in our bodies that create dis-ease. Western medicine's like, yeah, that's just a symptom. That's just a thing. That's not a dis-ease yet. But Ayurveda is like, oh, it's the beginning of it. So Sheena and I want to sort of tell you about some of these things that are the beginning of disease, but we don't measure them that way in our Western culture. So some of these symptoms are things like, oh, I have a runny nose. I have a runny nose today. Or the circles under my eyes are bigger than they've been for a while. That's a sign. I'm constipated. That's a sign. These are things that in Western medicine, there's no disease there yet. Yeah. But Ayurveda is like, yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's a sign that there's a buildup of toxins.
Yeah. And we normalize it in our society, right? It's normal. Yeah, I get headaches too. Or, when I get crampy around my period, or, like the constipation piece, right? We normalize like, oh, all of that memory lapses and, like just think of all of these different symptoms that we kind of just talk about and normalize on a regular basis. That is our body just kind of nudging us like, hey, I don't feel great, right? I have this headache. Well, why do I have that headache? Have I drank enough water? Or, maybe I'm overwhelmed and I'm overthinking and there's too much going on in my head and it's starting to create this symptom, right? So it's just one of those things where if we were to get curious as to why we feel the way we do, it can open up and help us understand more of what we need in our life to balance those symptoms and to have just that sense of well-being and a symptom-free way of living.
Because these things that are so common for us, they're not actually normal. They are our body's way of communicating something to us. And if we had this underlying belief that everything our body is doing is in our best interest, even when we have that killer headache, our body is doing that to try and communicate something to us. And we've gotten into a place in our culture where we just Band-Aid that. We just go take an Advil and we don't consider why we have that symptom. Or if, like Sheena was saying, period symptoms, or our sleep is disrupted, or we're having energy crashes every afternoon, or our cravings, we know we're not craving things that are good for us. So the things that our body is telling us to come in, we know is not serving our highest self yet. So we try and play in that. We try and play with nourishment, with energy management, and with sleep, and pay attention to what's going on there. Pay attention to what's going on in our digestion and what the symptoms might be telling us. one thing in Ayurveda is that we scrape our tongues. So if you have a tongue scraper, then you get up in the morning, stick your tongue out, scrape your tongue, and the amount of white sludge that kind of comes off tells you how much toxin and ama buildup you have. It's almost like the gunk that's in your whole body can be reflected on the surface of your tongue. So have a check this morning when you go check into the mirror at how
Mhm.
pain.
I love that practice too, because it changes, right? So it's not always the same. So you can
Daily.
recognize, like, yeah, after an evening of, maybe you hang out with your girlfriends for a bit, have some, hors d'oeuvres that you wouldn't normally eat, or some wine, you wake up the next morning and that shifts. And so that's one practice that is really potent, because you can actually notice that change in real time. And so when you notice that on your tongue and think, what did I do yesterday? And it could be vice versa. It could be like, oh, look, I have barely nothing on my tongue. What did I do yesterday? How was I feeling yesterday? Right. So that's such a beautiful daily practice. I love that one, Jill.
So every one of these ideas, Sheena, do you have more on sort of that list of symptoms that you're thinking that we should mention right now around things that you feel in your body that is your cue that this cleanse is necessary for you?
I think of like gas and bloating, that indigestion piece, like when our digestion is just not quite fully functional. That is a huge sign. I think of like body aches and pains, right? So again, it's something we normalize. Oh, I'm getting older. It's harder to get out of bed in the morning. Those types of things, right? If we are, just kind of gassy, headaches. We've touched on a lot of them. There's so many more. We actually have a beautiful toxin toxin symptom list in our workbook that just kind of touches on everything. So things you wouldn't even really associate with it. But yeah,
yeah. So when we start to pay attention to these symptom buildups, like Sheena and I were having a conversation this morning before we came on the call about how our innate bodies are saying, I'm ready, I'm ready. And it's just this intuitiveness that they know it's coming. They know this cleanse is coming, and that intuitiveness in the bodies is like craving it. Because Thanksgiving is coming up next weekend, we don't start until after Thanksgiving. So we're going to let you have sort of one final kickoff before
your last meal.
I want to tell you about what the Jill and Sheena version of cleansing looks like. You're going to design it yourself. Speak to that, Sheena.
Yes. So we have, again, a whole long list of different practices and habits that you could, you could include in your day-to-day life. But what the curating your own cleanse actually looks like is looking at you as an individual. You know how you're feeling, kind of where you want to, or how you want to be feeling in the future. So looking at these different habits, what ones do you feel are the most potent for you to start to include? And also, which ones are more accessible, and what are you willing to actually do? Right. And so like, I know for me personally, like when we talk about food, right, I'm the intense food person where I'm like, okay, we're cleansing, we're cutting out gluten and dairy and sugar and alcohol and caffeine, and making a really long list of all the things you can't have. But for some people, that's like a hard no. So that's where we want you to look at, okay, what are you maybe over consuming? What's maybe one food category that you're willing to give up that you think might be the most beneficial during this time for you, and also the most available to do, right? Yeah. Versus saying, you have to eat this, and, we're not going to give you a recipe to follow. You get to pick and choose what is going to be best for you, right? And we also then talk about moving your body. Moving our body every day is so important. When we move our body, we actually move our lymphatic system, and our lymphatic system is such a huge part of detoxification. That doesn't get enough, love and attention when we talk about detox, but that's really important. So what does that look like for you? Could you go on a, morning walk every day? Is that available to you? If not, that's fine. When can you move your body? How can you move your body? So it's not to say follow our recipe card. You get to make your own recipe card about what is the best way that you can nourish yourself, and really spend some intentional time checking in with yourself over the 3-week period of the cleanse.
Yeah. So each week what will be consistent for all of us is that we will be designing a morning routine for ourselves. That morning routine might be something that's 15 minutes long. If you have the luxury of time, then that morning routine might become something that's much more in depth than that, and an evening routine. And we use these two anchors in our day to just do a check-in so that the rest of the day flows okay. What we need to put in the bulk of our day is how we hydrate, how we nourish, how we move, and how we connect. So we will be designing our cleanse with these anchors on either end of each day, and then hydration, movement, connection, and nourishment. What did I forget? One of those ones. That's how we'll be building it. And we give you the building blocks. We give you tons and tons of building blocks. So you're like, I need a bath is going to come into mind. Mine needs a walk. I need to be giving up alcohol. I need to be doing meditation. Whatever it is, we're going to be giving you these building blocks to put into what your weeks are going to be.
Yeah. And then my favorite part about the cleanse is that each week when we do our our coaching call and our check-in, we get to refine and reflect, or I should say reflect, I guess, first, and then refine for the next week. So if you are intense like I am, right? You're like, I'm going to do it all. And the first week maybe doesn't go as well as you were hoping. Then we check in and we say, okay, what is more realistic? How do I need to shift and change my second week to be even more potent and even more nourishing to my body, mind, and soul?
Whereas I'm someone who's going to ease in. So I might be choosing to drop into minimizing, say, caffeine intake, or dropping into doing decaf or something like that, so that by the time I'm done my 3 weeks, coffee's not a part of my cleanse anymore. But I might not go cold turkey. I might not go through the list and X everything off like Sheena's going to do. So every time I do my weekly check-in, my goal might be to be able to go a little bit deeper each time, and have that refinement just serve me so that I'm ready, and whatever I choose next is sustainable for me to be able to do. That would be the goal. And that's how we want everyone to approach this, because we want you not to think of this as like 1 3-week, 21 day, I'm going to be perfect at the end of this. We want you to realize that this becomes a lifestyle.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the other thing we want you to remember in this cleanse is that it's all about simplicity. We would like you to make your calendar, your schedule, your digestion as simple as possible. We know that for everyone who joins the cleanse, there's going to be some element of fasting. And I say that in the easiest possible way. That might just mean that you are going to not eat for 12 hours each night. If you shut off, if you finish dinner at 7 p.m., you're not going to eat again until 7 a.m. Some of you who are more experienced with fasting might be choosing a longer stretch. Like you might say, I'm going to try and fast for 14 or 16 hours per day. Some of you might even have during the cleanse like a full 24-hour period where you're not choosing to digest anything, because you're creating space. You're creating space, and we do that intentionally during this time. We dial down our calendar and we dial down our digestive intake. So we're curating that purposefully, but again, you get to set the parameters for yourself.
And I love that idea too, because also recognizing what are other things that are contributing to your AMA or your toxin load. So when I think of fasting too, I think of what would it feel like to fast from social media for I want to say 3 weeks, maybe that sounds impossible, but maybe even for every evening, or again, just figuring out what works for you, but fasting from the news, fasting from maybe a toxic friendship, or, what are these areas in your life that potentially are bringing in some stress and some congestion into your life and into your body? And could we choose to fast from those things as well? So it's not just about food, it's about looking at your entire life and all the different things that are stressing us out, and how can we fast, and what feels appropriate and necessary for this time.
Yeah. So that's, I guess, one of the first rules is that we're going to simplify what we're taking in.
Mhm.
But we also, our second goal is to purge, is to just get rid of stuff. And we think of that on multi dimensions here. So we want you to think of your physical space. Perhaps it's your kitchen, and there's some things you need to purge out of your kitchen, where you're going to prepare the space that you're going to be using to do your cleanse, so that there's not all these temptations or, anything that's going to distract you, anything that's using up space that doesn't need to be there, that doesn't serve your highest self. You can do that same practice in your bathroom. You can do that same practice in your closet. You can do that same practice, like, I don't know, maybe it's your vehicle that needs to be purged. But you're thinking of where I'm just going to clean things out. I'm going to have a fresh slate. Maybe it's your office desk where you work, and it just needs to be cleaned and cleared so that you feel like you have more space. There's more clarity. There's more functionality. There's more focus available when that purge gets to happen.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we always feel so much better, right? When we spring clean, or when we declutter an area, you just look at it and you feel that just lightness, right? And so we're doing that not only in our bodies to feel that lightness, and to feel just kind of invigorated and inspired, we can be doing it in every aspect of our life.
Sheena and I both like to talk about poop a lot. So there is that idea of purging too. Like, we want to be feeling a daily purge. We want to know that our body is getting rid of everything that it does not need. And so that when you have a bowel movement every day, it feels complete. You feel empty. And there is a cleaning happening in your body. You can feel the fact that that your body's gone into the deep corners and pulled down some dust and sludge and dust bunnies, and it's actually getting rid of more than just what was dinner last night. It's helping clean out the whole digestive tract.
Mm-hmm.
So last one is just this idea of tapping into our fire. Our Ayurveda uses the word Agni to describe your digestive fire. So we need to incinerate everything that goes into the body. And there's this beautiful process where the body takes what it needs and absorbs it into the cells, puts everything else into the incinerator, and lets it go. That fire in our bodies is called Agni, and in Ayurveda. And it's actually, there's even a goddess of Agni. So in Hindu religion, it's something that has like a prayer to, a celebration of the right size fire in your body. And this fire, when it gets too big, it shows up as indigestion, heartburn, acid reflux. It can show up as canker sores, as skin rashes, as pimples, as excess heat. It shows up as hot flashes. And when it's not, there's not enough Agni, there's not enough fire, it just smolders in there, and everything you eat just lands and doesn't move. It doesn't shift. How do you describe that, Sheena?
Well, just the boring word of digestion, right, is how I describe it. But ultimately, it's the same thing, right? When we are ready to take in food or take in nourishment, we can feel that. We can feel that fire. We can feel that sense of hunger. And it feels very different when it's true hunger versus when it's something like an emotional hunger, right? Where sometimes it's like, I feel antsy in my body. I don't really know what I need. So I'm going to just grab something because I'm hungry. But it's maybe not that you're hungry at all, or more often than not, it's you're not hungry at all. And when we actually consume that food or anything, when we're not ready, when we don't have that fire and that readiness to digest and absorb it, it lays flat in the tummy. And then I think of, we have low stomach acid. If we're not ready to digest, we have really low stomach acid. And then what that means is we're not able to break down that food. Then it moves into our intestines, larger chunks that then our bacteria, feast on, and we get gas and we get bloating and we get constipation and everything slows down, right? And that is, again, going to contribute to this congestion, these toxins, and all of that in the body. But I also really think about our emotional state, right? So in order to really ramp up this digestive fire, we need to be in our parasympathetic nervous system. We have to be resting and ready to digest. And so you need to be checking in before we eat. How am I feeling, right? Because if we're in our stress response, right, if we're like perceiving a threat and we're basically running away from a bear, our blood gets shunted away from our midsection and we are not ready to digest that food. We are in this stress response where our body wants to survive. So we're bathed in, all of these stress hormones and our body's just not ready to take anything in. So we have to wait and we have to create some practices around down regulating our nervous system so we're able to have a really good, healthy digestive fire when we do choose to eat. So I really always encourage people to do a little bit of a check-in before you go to eat some food and see, how am I feeling, right? If you've just maybe had a really stressful or upsetting phone call and then you're going to sit down to eat dinner, that's not the best time to be taking in food. Maybe, and countless other stressors in life. So one thing that I love to practice, and I'm going to encourage everyone to be trying this out and practicing this lots in the next 3 weeks, is just place your hand, and let's all do this together right now. Like place your hand over top of your heart and just close your eyes down. And it doesn't have to take long. It can be, 3 to 5 deep breaths. And just really connect to your heart space. What I like to do is I like to pretend or imagine that I have these 2 nostrils on the palm of my hand, and I'm literally able to breathe directly into my heart space to really feel that connection. And then you can just ask yourself, what am I truly hungry for? And take a few more breaths, and then just wait and see what comes up. Right? So often we're just so rushed to get on to the next thing that we're not paying attention to the information that the body is trying to give us. And so by spending a few moments just here in your heart space, connecting to yourself and asking, what is it that I truly need right now? You will be amazed at what comes up. Sometimes that hunger that we think that we're feeling, it's not hunger at all. It's an emotional need that's unmet. Maybe we're not hungry, maybe we are lacking connection and we need to go and call a friend or a loved one and just chat and connect and really, just feel that emotional connection. Maybe it's a physical need that we haven't met. Maybe you need a physical hug from a loved one. There's so many different needs that can trick us into believing that it's hunger. And that's not always the case. So we want to be really making sure that we are connecting to ourselves. And whatever information comes up, can we gift it to ourselves, right? And when we can do that, we start to create more of an inner trust in the body, where our body truly believes that, hey, I'm loved and I'm safe here, and I will get my needs met. And that is a whole other transformational level of health when you have that intuitive connection with yourself and that trust, it shifts everything.
This is where Sheena's starting to speak Ayurveda for me, because I feel like that's how Ayurveda talks about it. When we tap into hunger, we tap into our deep desires. We tap into like our fire. And when we tap into that, that becomes evolutionary. When we can start to tap into that deeper desire, we start to tap into our dharma, our life purpose, that which fires us up, that which, you know, is our spark. All of those words that are like fire, right? That's what gets us going every day. And this is what ultimately we want to be able to lead you in, that kind of experience where we are tapping into something way bigger in your hunger than just what you want to eat. Although that's where it has to start. Mm-hmm. So our fall cleanse starts with a kickoff call next Tuesday. So I'm going to say a week. So we're going to Thanksgiving Monday, the Tuesday after, we have a noon kickoff call where we're going to drop you into you, and we're going to do a meditative experience, and you're going to lift out of you what you need the most right now. And then we will use that first week for the purging and the planning and the simplifying. Maybe you've got to do some things to get different groceries in your house or plan food differently. And then we'll begin the following Monday.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. October 18th is the official start date. And then we are together for 3 weeks with different coaching calls and touch-ins from Jill and I. And then on our third week, we will help you emerge out of the cleanse by setting really specific goals for yourself as to how you want to kind of move forward. And there's also awesome opportunities to continue to work with Jill or I after the cleanse if you're looking to move deeper. But yeah, that's we wrap up on November 7th. Is that correct? Yes, November 7th. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what else we need to tell you? It's $200. I think it's $199 or $197 or something. I can't remember, but you can sign up on either jillnovakyoga.com under my events or workshops or something. Same under Sheena's website.
Welcome-to-bliss.com.
Welcome-to-bliss.com. And you can register there. What happens as soon as you register is that you will be invited to bring a friend for free. So like if you're like Janice, you already kind of know that you and your friend are going to be splitting this, then one of you signs up, gets yourself registered, and you can do whatever email transfers you need to do behind the scenes. Or you can sign up and gift it to a friend who would be a really good accountability partner, someone who could be your sidekick through this next 3 weeks. And what happens usually with these accountability partners is that you guys fall into this deeper conversation. The one that you can hear Sheena and I having is that you and your accountability partners start to drop in together, and the connection that you have with each other, the connection that you have to your own hunger, you start to be able to support each other in helping that thrive.
Mm-hmm.
So
I also think of gifting when you have that loved one or that really good friend who, like, they need this and maybe they don't know that they need it yet, but so that might be a nice gift and a subtle invitation to say, hey, let's do this together because we can both benefit. That's an option as well. A loving nudge.
Yeah, a loving nudge. I always go for the person who's going to help and push me. Sheena always goes for the person who she can help bring along. Two different ways to approach it, I guess. That's what we need to share with you guys today. That's what we want to help you understand about how we work and what we want to bring you as an experience. We are really, really excited to be able to launch into that, not only in our own bodies, because not only are we your guides, but we are your participants alongside you.
Okay. Well, this was amazing. Thank you for coming out and spending your Sunday morning with us. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you guys on the cleanse.